Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, and all of our guests today brought to you by sponsors of our inbox. Delaney's OK Tire in Langley, in business for over 20 years. OK Tire is Canadian owned and operated from coast to coast. Clayton and Brett Delaney, second generation owners. They handle all the major tire brands as well as custom wheels and suspension, leveling kits and lifts and full mechanical services. Visit them at 19863 Fraser Highway in Langley. Just before we get to Thomas Drance from The Athletic to talk about the Canucks, Delaney's OK Tire in Langley inbox, no shortage of submissions informing us that the Dice and Ice event last night, not at the Park, it was at the Hotel Vancouver, the Fairmont
And
Hotel
Park
Vancouver.
isn't spelled P-A-R-K. It's a P-R-Q. So, I mean, that's why he threw me off.
Well, it's
Park.
not P-R-Q either.
What is it? It's not spelled. It is P-R-Q.
P-A-R-Q.
Okay, anyways, let's move on. Where was it? At the Fairmont?
Hotel Vancouver.
Ryan had it wrong.
Landmark Hotel.
It is a beautiful hotel.
It really is. Thomas Drance joining us now from The Athletic. Were you at the Dice and Ice last night by any chance, Thomas?
I was not. I was at the PRAQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there Dice and Ice there? Hey, Thomas.
Yes.
Go ahead. Did the media go too far with Rick Tocchet's description of Elias Pettersson's play on Wednesday?
No. Who did? No one did it. I don't know what. This is broken telephone. This is broken telephone, flat out. Go listen to the clip, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Tocchet was responding to media coverage. He was responding honestly and frankly, as he always does, to a question framed to him, for media who said, you blasted Pettersson or whatever it was. What's your reaction to that, right? Go read all the columns. No one locally that I can tell framed it as some big piece of drama, right? I think everyone was pretty nondescript, mild criticism, frank commentary.
Yes,
those are
honest.
sort of the descriptions. I mean, yeah, we've seen Tocchet do this. We've seen Tocchet have a frank, and one thing I thought was interesting about the scrum, and again, I advise people to go listen to it in full, is he sort of says this, right? His reaction to the idea that he blasted Pettersson is negative, and maybe I'll have to be more careful about what I say about players. 5 questions later, he's asked about Mikheyev and gives frank, honest feedback about Ilya Mikheyev. This is how Tocchet's wired, and it's a good thing. An NHL head coach, someone with the hockey experience that Rick Tocchet has, sees the game differently, sees more in the game than you or me or any of the fans that obsess over this team. Tocchet's willingness to share that with us, right, both in terms of the media but also of the fans, I think is really valuable. I think it's been a big reason why, he's resonated in such a major way as a spokesperson and communicator for this team. I think it's a wholly positive thing. I hope it continues. I'm confident it will continue. This, to me, gentlemen, just feels like a little bit of navel gazing. It's like the Canucks have won so much, right? That their bad day is a comeback overtime loss that extends their 10-game point streak, in which they eliminate 2 separate 2-goal leads in the third period. That qualifies as a day where we have to find some stuff to navel gaze about these days in Vancouver. Just bring on the All-Star break. Let's get there. There's going to be drama down the stretch. There are going to be meaningful games. There's going to be a trade deadline. There are going to be things that are worth getting up in arms about. But Tocchet's commentary about Pettersson, and then what I see is a bit of broken telephone between the media pool and Tocchet yesterday in discussing it. That ain't it. That's just kind of a nothing burger in my view.
Yeah, I'm just worried about the honesty stopping, and I think people appreciate the honesty. Fans, media.
Sure.
I think the players appreciate the honesty too, even if it comes in a public form. Thomas, your article in The Athletic after the Canucks lost to St. Louis, OT lost to St. Louis. Ignore the noise. What matters is next. Maybe it's obvious, but what did you mean by that?
I literally tried to write a column. Because, Zadorov got benched. There was this non-call in overtime. There was some critical commentary about Pettersson following the game. And I tried to write this column that was like, hey, guys, let's do a maturity check here. Let's not blow up this game and sort of navel gaze too much about these talking points. And then it blew up anyway. So, good. My glad to see my influence isn't diminished, gentlemen. No, you could just sniff it out. You could just sniff it out. Like, I was watching this game and I was like, what matters here is that no Canucks got hurt and that this team passed a basic maturity test, and that you could totally understand them looking past this game, especially when they went down 2-0, almost 3-0, and 3-1 again. But instead they battled back and put in the sort of mature effort that you'd hope to see from a team that's, a few days away from having the freedom to go visit a tropical climate and take some time off, take a deep breath. I watched that game and I was like, hey, that's what matters. What matters is that this team passed the maturity test and no one got hurt. And, man, it's going to be fun on the other side of the All-Star break. Let's all chill out. And, if the team passed a maturity test, I'm not sure the market did.
Hey, Thomas, the Canucks are holding their scouting meetings right now as we speak. So, obviously, for the trade deadline, everyone's on the same page, all that stuff. We're hearing the same names every week: Gensel, Lindholm, Henrique. With their play in the last week and on this homestand, do you see any targets being changed, or is it going to be a firm list of guys they go after and let's get these guys?
Yeah. So, here's what I'd say, right? Like, that road trip through New York, Rick, was where my eyes started to really open up in terms of what this team's ceiling could be. And that was because of what we saw at the top end of their lineup when they were really controlling play. And although the team has kept winning since then, the promise of that hasn't necessarily sustained itself, right? Like, this team's all season really been reliant on high quality finishing, right? And goaltending to drive a positive goal differential at the top of their lineup. They're not getting the same litany of heavy shifts that they're getting from, say, the Garland line, right? So when I think about what this team needs going into a wide open Stanley Cup playoffs this spring, a play driver, like a real play driver for the top six, position agnostic, remains, something that I think, if you're gonna really be able to take on the Edmontons and the Vegases of the world, I do think this team could use it. And so, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, I think this homestand more than anything has just reaffirmed that. I think we knew it anyway. Top six forward, like, there's a reason that's been what this team's been linked to. I think there's an understanding that adding another gear to the top of the lineup would certainly help. So, I think this homestand's just reaffirmed that. And yeah, I think it's a vital thing if this team's going to make a deep run in the playoffs. They're going to need to be able to hold the fort, control play a little bit better at the top end of their lineup you know, they've got the forward depth, they've got the top pair. The special teams, especially the penalty kill, is rounded into form. The goaltender, you know, you like the Canucks' chances every single night with Demko in net. I mean, this team's got a lot going for it, but that level of control that contenders usually have at the top of the lineup, that's been something that, you know, aside from one scintillating week in New York, has kind of been absent from the mix to this point.
With the Soucy injury, that has put now Friedman in the seventh defenseman spot. You worry down the stretch if the injuries, you know, add up on the blue line. Would you add a defenseman right now, depth-wise, for the Canucks?
I think so, Rick. And I actually like Vancouver's depth. I mean, if you're one injury away from Noah Juulsen, who I think has made a case to be a regular, you're in a good spot, right? If you're 2 injuries away from Mark Friedman, I think you're in a good spot. If you're 3 injuries away from having to look at Matt Irwin, Christian Wolanin, and, you know, Cole McWard, let's say, I think you're in a good spot, right? I mean, I think you can make the case that the Canucks go 10 or 11 deep on the blue line before you're worried about a guy playing 12 minutes in a must-win playoff game on the back end. What I don't know that the Canucks have a ton of cover for is an injury specifically to a top pair guy. Now, granted, most teams don't, right? I mean, your top pair guys, your 1 center, your 2 center, your starting goaltender, especially when they're a star-level performer, those aren't plug-and-play spots in any NHL team's lineup. I want to note that prominently here. But we've seen with Hughes in particular, that when you play him with a puck mover, obviously we know what's happened with Hronek, but even last year with Ethan Bear, when you play him with a puck mover, you completely change the environment in which he controls play. You get him more touches. You start to, control 55, 57% of the shots. You outscore your opponents almost 2-1. I mean, Quinn Hughes has literally outscored. The Canucks have outscored opponents 2-1 with Quinn Hughes on the ice this year. It's ludicrous. And in years past, I think the inability to get the puck moving from the back end has kind of been a fatal flaw for this club. That hasn't been the case this year, in part because of how well Hronek has fit in. I do think you should buy depth defensive insurance, just because if you get to late May and you need it, it can make a huge difference. But I especially think that this team should buy some puck moving insurance on the back end, right? To insulate itself, allow itself to at least play the same game with their top pair on the ice in the event that one of their most important defenders, has to miss a crucial game at some point in the spring. That to me would be, the sort of 2A need that I'd identify for this club going into the deadline.
Okay, and very, very quickly, what do you make of the Nikita Zadorov benching in the third period against St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, he lost a battle to Torpchenko. It cost the Canucks that 3-1 goal. We've seen Tocchet do this, right? This isn't unfamiliar territory. I think it's very much in line with the Pettersson comments. You know what I mean? It's like we've seen a lot of players have this happen to them over the course of the season as a result of performance. We saw weeks where Myers' ice time dipped down. He's played some of his best hockey. Dakota Joshua, JT Miller. I mean, this has happened to players at the top of the lineup. It's happened to players at the bottom of the lineup. It's happening to Nikita Zadorov. Guess what? Zadorov's really good. He's going to bounce back. It's a big nothing burger. Let's all stay calm. The things to get excited about lie on the other side of the All-Star break, and it'll be a ton of fun. The most fun we've had covering this sport in this city in a decade plus.
And we appreciate the fact that your sweater, the shirt underneath it, and your wall, all the same tone, pretty much the same color.
But hey,
looking good.
But HC and Ladner just texted us. Thomas Drance needs to buy an iron. What's with the sweatshirt?
Oh, it's just a sweatshirt, though. It's not a nice sweater. But yeah, no,
it's a sweatshirt. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I should have steamed it out. Sorry, HC, you're right. I'm a little wrinkly. It's what happens when you get old.
No chance. All right, Thomas. Next week. Thank you so much, sir.
Cheers, boys.